Good morning, everyone. It's time to go on the record.
There can be no compromise with racism. There can be no negotiation with bigotry.
Senator Elizabeth Warren sticking to core values as she looks ahead to a major shift in Washington policy. She is our guest today. There is much to discuss.
You can exchange marijuana, with other adults, people over 21, just like you can give somebody a bottle of wine.
And what's that I smell? The hazy implementation of legal marijuana here in Massachusetts. And
Christmas shopping for Donald Trump. Someone had to do it.
From WCPB Boston, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill, today's newsmakers are going on the record.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ed Harding, along with News Center 5's political reporter Janet Wu. If you haven't started your Christmas shopping, your holiday shopping, you better get at it. But wait until after the show this morning, because our guest today is the Commonwealth Senior Senator Elizabeth Warren. She has just landed a spot on the powerful Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator Warren, thank you for joining us. I don't know if I like to say senior senator. You know what I mean? No, you're vibrant and alive.
No, I'm totally now into this whole Senate thing where seniority matters. So I'll take
You'll
that.
take it. All right, she'll take
You
it.
bet.
You got it.
You bet.
Happy holidays and thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here. What's your reaction to reports that Russian President Vladimir Putin was himself involved in the cyber hacking in the U.S. elections because of a vendetta specifically against Hillary Clinton?
I think involvement of the Russian government in our core electoral process is deeply disturbing, something that both Republican and Democratic senators have called for a full investigation. We need to get to the bottom of this. This is really serious business.
Were you surprised when you heard this?
Or
Or have you known this for a while?
There has been information for a while.
And so none of this is that shocking to you?
Well, look, it is still shocking because of what it is. And it really means, as a country, we got to know what happened here and what kind of response we're going to develop to this. The whole world is changing around us. And the ways in which countries the ways in which countries engage in warfare has changed fundamentally. And the idea that the Russian government, Vladimir Putin himself, can actually reach in and finagle the American election of a president, that is profoundly shocking, and it means we're in a new world.
Well, did President Obama know about the hacking before the election?
Well, all I know is what I read in the press about that part. I don't know what the president.
And if indeed that happened, would that bother? I assume that would bother you, correct?
I would be very bothered.
And the fact that the Republicans basically control the White House, the Senate, and the House, do you trust them to do investigations that will be, the integrity will be in place?
Since this is about the integrity of the electoral process, I think this is a moment where Republicans and Democrats have to come together. And I truly believe on this, that there are Republicans who want to get to the bottom of this. This time around, one could argue it helped the Republicans, but next time around, maybe it helps the Democrats, maybe it helps somebody else. The point is the integrity of our process, and I believe there are both Republicans and Democrats who put their first concern about the country and the integrity of our elections, not party.
So like any other stone that jumps in a lake, there's a ripple effect. So let's talk about President-elect Trump, and he's announced some of his interesting cabinet picks, and Rex Tillerson is right there. You talk about Vladimir Putin, you talk about Rex Tillerson. I mean, let me start there.
Yeah, start there, because this is one that I think there are going to be people who are both Republican and Democrat who are going to have trouble with this announcement. This is kind of one of those things.
Do you believe that's the one cabinet nominee that may not be approved by the Senate?
Well, I don't want to say the one because I have problems with a whole lot of them, and we have only started our investigations. Oh, come on,
Rick Perry in Energy, Steve Mnuchin in Treasury.
Treasury. This is a guy who made his fortune by helping sell the products that exploded the economy, and then he set up a foreclosure machine to grind up families that got caught up in these tricky mortgages. Somebody to head up the Environmental Protection Agency, who is a climate change denier, somebody to head up Health and Human Services, who wants to privatize Medicare. There are a lot of places where there is going to have to be a really big public discussion about having those people. But I think that Tillerson, shall I say, jumps to the front of the pack in terms of the problems that he presents. We're talking about someone for Secretary of State, you know, our chief representative around the world, who has these close ties to Vladimir Putin. You know, we've already been worried about Donald Trump's ties to the Russians, and now to put someone like this, to nominate someone like this for Secretary of State.
So what's the overall message?
What, you mean from Trump?
From Trump, yeah, in appointing Rex Tillerson, Rick Perry, Steve Mnuchin, and these other names that you mentioned. What's the overall message here?
I think there are a couple of messages in this. I think one of them is about Donald Trump saying during the campaign, you know, I care about the little guy, I'm going to fight Washington, remember his language, I'm going to drain the swamp.
Right.
And then he turns around and he starts to name people that are the Wall Street insiders, billionaires, that's not draining the swamp, and really extremist conservatives like climate change deniers. In other words, it's business as usual for powerful interests in Washington, only more so, more business than usual for them. Tillerson may be a whole nother category.
So that's my question. Do you think there is a real chance that the Senate would not confirm him?
Oh, I think there's a real chance that that's
Are there
the case.
anybody else that you would put on that list that it also is in danger, in serious danger?
I don't know yet. I just put, for me, I put Tillerson at the top of the list in terms of what I'm hearing from my Republican
But that would
colleagues.
require Republicans
Oh, it
from
does.
voting against him.
That's right. Remember, Democrats do not have a blocking position on
Right.
any of these nominations. So it's going to mean not just that Democrats think we shouldn't have a climate change denier as the head of the Environmental Protection Agency. It means you've got to pick up at least some Republicans who believe that as well. I think that Tillerson is the first place where we've seen Republicans come to the front and start to say, whoa, I have a problem with naming a friend of Russia to be our chief diplomat.
Let's change the conversation to Scott Brown. You had
Sure.
said earlier that he might make a good Secretary of Veteran Affairs. Looks like he is being put lower on that short list, if he's even on that short list anymore. Is that a mistake on the part of Donald Trump?
Well, as I said, and I really do believe that if he had the chance to run the Veterans Affairs Department, that Scott Brown would put his heart and soul into that. And I would do everything I could to help him. I think that that makes him a strong nominee for that position. And I would really like to see Donald Trump consider him. Of course, I kind of hate to say this because I'm not sure if I'm any help.
A lot of
in this conversation.
A lot of veteran groups have come out saying that Scott Brown is not the right pick. Are they wrong about that?
Look, everybody's going to have their own view on this, but I don't see how anybody can doubt the sincerity that Scott Brown has for putting vets first. And he has long experience, he's served, but he also cares, and he makes it a first priority. And starting there is a good place for me to start the work that needs to be done.
Do you mind if I say, in the overall picture, to hear what you and he went through to fight for the seat, and then to hear you speak so glowingly of him right now? It's an interesting contrast, that's all I'm saying.
Well, look, partly campaigns are really hot affairs, and partly life goes on. We're not contesting for the same seat. What we're doing now is trying to do what's best for the country. And that means the places that you can find where you overlap, where you work together, and where you think you can help make things a little better for this country, golly, that's exactly what we ought to be doing.
How difficult will it be for Democrats to work with Donald Trump after some of the things he said on the campaign trail? You were mentioning this earlier. Listen to this.
We nasty women are going to march our nasty feet to cast our nasty votes to get you out of our lives forever.
Now, when we were playing this, you were chuckling, remembering the moment. But
I do.
But the question off of that is, how do you keep from eradicating what President Obama has done with Republicans in charge of the House, the Senate, and the White House? I mean, how do you keep all that in line?
Look,
eradicating the president's work.
This is really about how we build a future going forward. And for me, it's just kind of a couple of core principles. The first one is we don't embrace bigotry. We don't let it pass by. We don't become passive enablers. We stand up. There's no compromise on that one. And the other is how we build economic opportunity, not just for those at the top. They're doing great. It's how we build economic opportunity for all of America, for the 90% of America that really has been left behind. This is what I'm fighting for, and this is what I will push the Trump administration every single day.
But the Democrats' voice is going to be very faded, is it not, in the next year?
It's going to be
next
tough.
4 years.
It's going to be tough. Of course it will be. But you know, I always remember on this, people still voted for us. Lots of people voted for us. Millions of people voted for our presidential candidate, more than for the other one. People voted to put more senators, more Democratic senators in the Senate, more in the House. They didn't send us there to lie down and play dead. They sent us there to fight for what we believe in. And that means really fighting for the dignity of every person and fighting for economic opportunity for all of us.
We have hit the OTR pop quiz. Wall, place, spot, and time. Question 1. President Trump's nomination for new Homeland Security head is 4-star General John Kelly, former U.S. Chief of U.S. Southern Command, 66 years old, born in Boston, educated here. Where did he go to college? Was it Harvard, was it UMass Boston, or was it BU?
It was BU.
It was UMass Boston.
I sound right.
His youngest son, Lieutenant Robert Kelly, died in 2010 on his third tour in Afghanistan, so he's a Gold Star parent.
Yep.
Question 2. On the very morning that the president-elect announced Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State, an entertainer appeared with Mr. Trump in the lobby of Trump Tower. And is it fair to call him a distraction? But who was the apparent distraction?
Kanye West.
Kanye West.
Yeah.
All he wanted to do was take a picture with the president. He didn't want to talk. President-elect. We continue with Senator Warren. Stay with us.